the iPod Touch. They have the Optima PK1 projector. Yes, look at this. There he is, Samuel de Champlain, Monsieur de Champlain, who made this voyage. And actually, that image of Samuel de Champlain, we know now, it's of a man who lived about 100 years after Samuel de Champlain. In 1909, we had this grand celebration, the biggest party that was ever thrown in the Champlain Valley. Everybody was so happy to see Le Sieur de Champlain, very handsome man. If you were a person in my valley in 1909, just as the image of Henry Hudson. You all seen the image of Henry Hudson, right? Of course, you know, same as with Samuel de Champlain, that wasn't Henry Hudson. No one ever painted Henry Hudson's portrait during life, as no one painted Samuel de Champlain's portrait. And so, right away, we know that whatever stories they had in 1909 about these great explorers, they have changed a lot. Just like the portraits we know now are false, we know that many of the stories are perhaps not false, but incomplete. And so think about it. For us, in 2009, Pat just spoke of the gallery and the exhibits upstairs. All through your beautiful, beautiful valley, there are these extraordinary efforts to portray the past and also find a way to engage with the past in the present, to bring alive people's feelings about these great landscapes and these great histories that are our legacy. So I'd speak to you for a moment about 1909, 100 years ago, because 100 years ago, in my valley, when Samuel de Champlain was being celebrated, the 300th anniversary, oh, what a party. Never before such a party. In Burlington, even the president. Who was the president in 1909?
Taft.
Taft. President William Howard Taft. Perhaps you can't quite see his profile there. It was a very prosperous era, 1909. Oh, there we go. There is the good president, touring the ruins of Fort Ticonderoga. In fact, so many things that we look upon today, structures, ways that we interpret the past of these valleys, comes because of the celebration in 1909. It excited and interested people's, it quickened their interest in the past, in the glorious days of exploration, but all the days of the past. 300 years, people could now cast their glance back and think about the origins of their towns. Towns like Plattsburgh, New York, where throughout the Champlain Valley, you see all that red, white, and blue bunting on the streets of Plattsburgh because they scheduled the Champlain celebration to coincide with the 4th of July. So parades and pageants and fireworks were the order of the day. The order of the day is such that so many people came for this celebration in my little town of Burlington, Vermont, that at that time was probably 20,000 people. And they built a grandstand on the waterfront for 10,000 people to sit and watch a grand pageant that was displayed showing the history of the valley by making an artificial island and hiring Indians to come and play at a battle that would show the very beginnings of history. And how exciting for the people of the Champlain Valley to think about the native history back 300 years before and portray those stories. And to think about Champlain coming to an unknown place and making maps so that others could come. Others could come with a dream of amitié. Champlain himself, his king Henri IV, Henry IV, and all of those who came from France came with the dream of amitié, of friendship, of concord, because in their own land there were terrible, terrible bloody wars. And someone was just telling me in the coffee house, Karen had invited people to share stories of conflict resolution. And someone who was kindly massaging my feet, Ali, said to me, yes, I'm down here because there's a great conflict in my life, a deep conflict, and I decided that instead of staying and fighting, where's that wonderful gentleman that told that story? Yes, I see you. What's your name? Gene. Gene, yes. And as Gene said, Gene was giving us a kind of updated version of turning the other cheek, right? I don't need to engage with you now. I can step away. And so Ali said, yes, instead of fighting, she went away. She stepped away from her life a little bit to give herself some breathing space. And that is what the French were doing. They stepped away into a place where they could dream of peace and of concord. And yet, what was the first thing that happened is that Champlain was knit into the conflict that already existed in this land. It was already a place of conflict. And there, by his own hand, is this seminal moment that in 1909, this was all the organizers could think about. Where was it that he fired that shot? Because indeed, he was made into the secret weapon of the Algonquin, the Huron, the Montagnais, in their preemptive attack against their enemy, the Magua, the Mohawk, the man-eating cannibal torturers, the eastern door of the Iroquois, great imperial nation expanding their territory and driving into the territory to the east of Lake Champlain. And so there he is, by his own hand, stepping forth from his allies, with his arquebuse in his armor, and this man who had dreamed of amitié. What does he do? He fires a shot, he kills two chiefs, he sends the Iroquois running, and he thereby cements an alliance that will become knit into this grand global war between the French and the English. So with the greatest dreams of amitié, of friendship, he, the great diplomat, the learner of all these languages, the one who is making alliances, he himself, in the making of alliance, is knit into a deep, deep conflict. It is so difficult to wage peace and to wage amity, as it was for the captain of the Half Moon, Henry Hudson. He himself could not manage the peace of his own ship, right? That there was a near mutiny on his 1609 voyage, and a year later on another voyage, and then in the spring of 1611, his own men put him out to die way up north. So much conflict. So much conflict. And even this grand moment of 1909, Wilbur Wright going for the first time out over the ocean, round the Statue of Liberty, and then up the Hudson River over the greatest flotilla of naval ships that's ever been seen in the history of the world. And those naval ships become the navies that many of them will become involved in this great global conflict, which will follow less than a decade after this 1909 celebration of peace and prosperity here in the Hudson Valley and in the Champlain Valley. And just over the horizon lies the first bloody, devastating global war of the 20th century. So, 100 years ago, the people in my valley, one of the things they did is they made a map. They made this map to show where all the celebrations were, just as you can find all the literature from the Quadricentennial Committee here in New York State, showing where should we go, what we'll see these celebrations, these great pageants and parades and so on. And it was so striking to me that as I looked at this map and I read about what happened 100 years ago, what I discovered is that the map showed only conflict. Every bit of the legend on this map is about battles and about great generals and about how many men died. And my vision then was to dream of some other set of legends, some other set of stories that might go onto a map. So I had my friend make a map that I could also turn into a pillow at night, made of lycra, and a map that I could also ask people to walk, students to walk up and down who wanted to walk to Manhattan with me, and a map that showed the 46 different towns where I would stop on my journey, looking for stories of amity, of peace and friendship. that I might